Welcome to Alchemical Science. I am Jordan, an open source researcher, an alchemist, and a student of the inventor and vortex fusion specialist Malcolm Bendall. The following isn't part of the Miami Plasmoid Roadtrip series that we've been doing, but it was still filmed in Florida at the workshops of Mr. Ed Grimm, who's a former NASA scientist and amazing inventor in his own right. So this is the first time that Ed has gone public with what he's doing. We've also got a tour of his workshop to come later, but this is just an interview that we conducted with Susan Devlin again, who was the MC, myself, Sheela Rahman, and Kieron Swords, who's been involved with the Thunderstorm generator project and was actually the guy who connected Ed Grimm and Malcolm Bendall, which is how I met him as well. So Ed's an absolutely incredible guy. He has an amazing ability to think critically, and he's very, very humble about what he does. So yeah, enjoy the video. This is a fantastic opportunity to go and see more of what's out there, more in this field of over-unity energy, essentially. And Ed in particular has been working on this 9-phase generator, but he's actually got a ton of different projects going, which you'll see in the tour of his workshop. So enjoy.
Hello, everyone. We're here in Clearwater, Florida to interview the incredible Ed Grimm at Virion, his company here in Clearwater, which actually means green energy. Hello. Good morning, Ed.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Good to be here with all these fantastic folks.
Yes, and we are also joined by Jordan Collin on our right, incredible alchemist and person who has the ability to understand Malcolm Bendall and distill his information so that the rest of us can understand it.
It's no small skill.
It's incredible skill. And on the right, we have Kieron Swords, Irish entrepreneur, manufacturing engineer, expert, incredible sort of force behind a lot of what's happening right now. In getting out this the Thunderstorm generator and some other things as well. Good morning, Kieron.
Good morning.
Good to have you.
It's brilliant to be here. It's an honor.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, we have the beautiful Sheela Rahman. Good morning, Sheela.
Good morning.
And Sheela is the audio engineer, frequency expert. She has an incredible background. And her abilities are similar to Jordan's in that she's able to absorb Malcolm Bendall's information and distill it for us. And actually, she can show it to us visually using her frequency generator and her oscilloscope. So good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
So excited to be here.
Yes. So we're going to get on with our interview of Ed Grimm. So Ed, can you tell us a little bit about your background and your story up to this point? I know you've long been interested in water as a fuel, basically.
Sure. So you're talking about this lifetime then?
More or less, yes. Feel
Okay.
free to bounce around a little bit if you need to, but
So,
yeah.
I was born a small humanoid child.
Like the rest of us.
It's really important, Things happen, so try to make the most of it from there. And now we're here, so. No, but I've always been technologically or mechanically adept and carried those capabilities from a young age. When other kids were riding around on their Schwinn bicycles, I was the one that was modifying them with force on them, hammering out curtain rods and putting extenders on there so they could look like choppers. I was the local youth wrench. So, continued on from there and just started building things and creating things and taking things apart.
Mm-hmm.
Went in the Air Force at a young age, worked on F-4 Phantoms.
Wow.
Which we call bent wing bug suckers. And those were a real challenge technologically to keep alive. But that led into the F-15s, and after a stint in the Air Force, I went and worked for McDonnell Douglas Aircraft Company, which is now absorbed by Boeing, but worked on the F-15s and did a couple of years out in Arabia. trying to train the folks out there on how to fix aircraft. Came back to the States, worked in aviation for some time, then went to work for NASA, worked on the space shuttle program.
Wow.
Was, it was really cool.
Can you expound a little bit on that and what you did for the space shuttle program? I mean, your expertise is obviously engines and all of that. So,
Well, we were working on the boosters, on the rocket boosters, and basically the steering mechanism, which is in that aft skirt assembly, the bottom of the booster. You have all of the machinery that makes that nozzle move around and keep everything going straight. So I worked on all the piping, the tubing. It was all done with computer controlled benders, and it was a real art. Building each and every one of them was a real art because it was an individual build each time, and you had to get the 3 dimensions to line up perfectly so you get a perfectly sealing tube. Because despite the fact that these were a lot of hydraulic tubes, which had a coarse molecule, a large fluid molecule pushing through them, you had to leak check it with helium, which is a tiny molecule.
I see. Makes sense.
Right. So if it passed the helium sniff test, then it would definitely not leak any hydraulic fluid. So when I got there, the average test protocol took about a week and a half to 2 weeks of testing and sniffing each of these 155 tubes with an inspector there stamping each step of the way. They're going pass, fail, pass, fail, pass, fail. And you go back and forth and correct all these leaks. And at the time when I got there, they were averaging 13 to 20 leaks at the beginning that they had to correct. So it would take days and days.
Right.
And I thought that was goofy. Why don't you just do it right the first time,
What a concept.
So I just started focusing on getting more and more precise sealing surfaces and stuff, and got it down to where on the first trial it was just three leaks, and everybody's raising eyebrows, and then down to 1 leak only. And then when it was 0 leaks on the first test, they launched a whole investigation. Like, the inspectors must be corrupt. These inspectors do anything they can to put a failed stamp on anything they want,
Yeah.
Sure.
So, and that's just attention to detail.
Right.
It's just interest in making it better. So, I worked at the United Space Alliance there for about 8 years.
Mm.
And, then along came the Obama administration and destroyed the whole shuttle program with their own whatever.
Right.
Tra la la.
Right.
Tra la la.
Right.
Well, which opened me up to the option. I was working in the calibration laboratory after that, NASA calibration laboratory, where you take all the equipment and you make sure that it's all set to standards. And so I got another finite, technical perspective on how to optimize equipment and how to optimize results.
Mm.
So,
Great.
the necessity of precision basically is the essence of that.
That was Nikola Tesla's philosophy, right? Is, think it out, work out what is actually right, what's going to work, and then do it once. Don't mess around experimenting. And
Right. Why waste so much materials and time?
Exactly.
I agree.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
so when that all came to a close, I came over to the Tampa Bay area, worked in aviation for a little while, but then I just created my own company for hydrogen boosters, because I've been playing in the field of hydrogen for some time, since early 90s, when I made my first electrolyzer that was purpose-built for a little Volkswagen that I had sitting in the back of the shop there. Everybody at that time, through the early 90s, everybody still had Volkswagen Beetles laying around, So I modified this one with a vapor carburetor, and I figured out how to get a good split of water and got the thing running. It wasn't anything complicated.
Wow.
It's not like Stanley Myers who was going down the road. This was just, okay, this is what I wanted it to do. It's doing it. The engine's running. I can tune it. I can adjust it. And it does okay. I'm happy because I was working on something that came to me kind of on a download type of a basis.
Interesting.
Yeah, you see, this friend of my father's had advanced cancer and he was reaching the end of life, and he was at that point where you're shedding yourself of material possessions.
Mm-hmm.
So he gave me this Oldsmobile that had a computer-controlled carburetor, which was common in those days. This was a late 80s model.
Mm-hmm.
And it was having all kinds of trouble and issues and stuff. So he said, here, you can have this if you can fix it. I'm like, I can fix it, no problem. So I took the carburetor apart and got it all remedied. But in looking at it, I'm like, why all this complexity in this carburetor, with all these additional solenoids and switches and valves and stuff? Solely because you're working with the wrong fuel to begin with.
Uh-huh.
Gasoline, what have you, the variety of fuels as they've evolved over the years are just slow burning crap, to put it into technical terms. So in looking at that, it occurred to me, we're doing this because we're using the wrong fuel to begin with. So what's the right fuel? Obviously, it's water. Obviously, it's hydrogen, the cleanest burning fuel there is.
And you had already sort of proved that to yourself with the Volkswagen.
Well,
That was later.
The Volkswagen was a means to create a fuel system for a motor that as I was mentioning, I downloaded on this basis. It was me asking that question of, what's the optimum way of converting hydrogen fuel? So I kind of, the Akashic Records kind of a moment there,
Very cool.
So pulled in this thing from way back when, way back over, way over yonder, kind of device that might have been on another place, a popular device for pumping swamps, and had utilized just swamp gas to run itself in a real simple rudimentary design of an engine. And this caused me to crawl out of bed and scratch out all kinds of engineering drawings and so forth. Just download. And I came up with this engine that had 2 heads, had 3 moving parts, just the ultimate simplicity, no camshafts, no ports or anything like that, nothing that is common now. And I designed this thing and made a little prototype unit,
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I was going for the hydrogen fuel, because this device was something that I saw as completely compatible with hydrogen fuel, or methane even,
Wow.
because lighter stuff. And at the time, I'm like, okay, so what am I going to make this out of? What's the metallurgical requirements for this kind of thing? Because there were folks that were experimenting with plasma coatings for pistons and cylinder heads, to handle high heat,
Mm-hmm.
high compression issues. And so I looked at this and I'm like, there really needs to be some kind of a 1991 there. There needs to be some kind of a ceramic aluminum. It's just my impression of what it should be,
Okay.
materials-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing of that type existed back in 91. But a few years later in an MIT laboratory, some guy had an accident and created ceramic aluminum. And nowadays, your average Honda car, the engine block is made out of ceramic aluminum.
Wow. There you go.
Also, at the time, I was like, okay, so I need something that's a direct into the combustion chamber injector. And nothing happening, nothing there. Now, just about every car on the road is sold with direct injection.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a little bit ahead of schedule on this whole thing there, but a variety of people conglomerated around the topic there and tried to put together a business plan out. I went through my savings there trying to launch this and learned entrepreneurship 101 there of, you think you're starting out on the ground level, but you realize that you were in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
You got to claw your way through all of the corporate aspects, the administrative stuff, all that's not without its challenges,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank goodness we have Kieron to help through that. We'll get to that part of the story. So this is fascinating. So that's that was your I guess your McDonnell Douglas days, or before then, I guess.
This was, it was post McDonnell Douglas. McDonnell Douglas was in the mid 80s, or actually, mid 80s, working out there in Saudi Arabia.
Great.
Yeah.
So bring us up to present time. So you have you're now a principal in Virion, and what kinds of things, like you've basically taken all this expertise that you have, and from my perspective, I mean, we've gone through your shop and you've explained things to me, and you have an incredible ability to understand the theory really well, the theoretical physics and electromagnetics and all of that. But you also have this ability, and it makes sense with your background, but also it's just an innate ability that seems to create things in the physical universe that perfectly apply the theories. So you sort of have both ends of things going. And I just want you to talk a little bit about your current endeavors at Virion and what you're involved in.
Sure. Well, a key part of everything that's been involved here, one of the base or the foundational aspects of what we're doing is still hydrogen. It's still producing hydrogen units and hydrogen devices, hydrogen technologies.
Mm-hmm.
But we also got into assisting a fellow named Joe Shepard that created this 9-phase generator.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody goes, 9-phase. Wait a minute. There's always been 1 or 3 phases. Or if you know somebody that's really deep into the engineering, then they are aware of the fact that in the past, people tried 6 phases and 12 phases and a variety of things like that. But it always just settled back down to 3 phases because of cost and simplicity,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to keep everything homogeneous, everything constant for everybody.
Something that could plug into all the other.
Something that was, it's in common use.
Got it.
But Joe Shepard had a different idea, and Joe was is a retired Boeing engineer, and he created a artificial intelligence on the topic of power generation. And once he put it all together, he asked it, clean slate, give me a design that's going to give me the optimum efficiency performance characteristics for power generation, tying it to whatever it is being used to rotate it, whatever's the prime mover, as we call it. So it spit out this design, and he evolved that for some years. And I think there was a report there that the DoD had claimed back, I think 9 or 10 years ago, that this was the most efficient DC generator that you could find that was available. And, so for a couple of years, I kind of backed him up a little bit in representing it to a variety of people that were interested, because it's an alternative energy, it's a new energy technology.
Mm-hmm.
But after a while, I persuaded Lynette that we should get a license from Joe to start producing these and do a little sideline activity, because alternative energy is the trend.
Right.
And the trend is your friend. So go with the trend, And she saw the intelligence in that, so we did. And in doing these buildups, it turned out that Joe had licensed a number of people, a number of groups and such, and none of them were able to replicate, really, to get the results. They'd smoke check the units, they'd fry them. And, I was the only guy duplicating it. So a number of them came to me to go, okay, so how do you do this?
Mm-hmm.
But I got with Joe, and we realized that you need to simplify it a little bit. So we simplified the wiring a bit, which made it more robust and more solid. And in building more and more of these units, I came to realize that there was a little bit more to be gained out of it. So he was shooting, mid to low 90s, 93%, 93.5% peak efficiency on this, which is really good.
Yeah.
And I did some oscilloscope tests so I could see what the actual waves looked like. And looking at those waves, I'm like, this nature don't move like that. So I'm always looking for biomimicry, how to follow the path of nature, because go with the flow.
Exactly.
So I came up with a mechanical means of modifying the magnetic rotor. This is a permanent magnet rotor that this device uses.
Mm-hmm.
And in modifying that, I gained pretty close to 5% more, which is absurd. But in addition to that, I also gained a broader range of high efficiency. So instead of having a gradual increase in efficiency, I went
Wow.
across the top, which now puts this thing into a whole new strata of performance, which is really, really beneficial for people that are looking for wind turbines, because wind turbines are always spinning at different speeds. Water wheels always spinning at different speeds.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're harvesting the highest percentage of energy from what's available to you at that rotational speed, you're doing much better. You're going to get more power generation. So,
Wow.
so that's where the 9-phase generator stands right now. And to answer the question of why 9-phase, it's because it's better. That's why.
The graphs prove it.
Good enough is not good enough anymore.
Is that opposed to 12-phase or something more? That 9 is the sweet spot, or it's just better than 3-phase?
Well, 9 was one of Tesla's favorite numbers there.
Oh yeah, I love 9. Yeah.
You can lock in on that a little bit there, but I don't know. I haven't played with 12-phase or anything of that nature, but the geometry of it really is what's significant. It's a matter of the mathematics between the poles on the rotor and the coils that are in the stator.
Yeah.
So that's the key to the low resistance, low torque for just rotating the rotor. Because a lot of generators, you grab them by the shaft and it's like, wow, you feel that detent feeling.
Yeah. So you decrease that.
So your prime mover has to handle that rotational torque resistance there. So without that, you get gains just in that.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
So how did you make it more efficient in the end and manage the leaks? You were talking about that a couple days ago, how the 9 phases were able to prevent some of those leaks that were happening.
Well, that's the force field rotor.
Mm-hmm.
It was really, again, it wasn't working with any kind of advanced science in terms of the coils or the windings or type of wire, but there's other things you can get with that if you want to spend the extra money. This was purely a matter of mechanical aspect of the rotor and keeping the fields well directed. So I call it a force field rotor. It's a little bit Star Trek-y, but this is where we're going. It uses these strong neodymium magnets. They're common in the field these days. But I'm using them in a fashion that gets more power and more clean, consistent transfer of the sine wave. So, yeah.
And that's all in the geometry of the rotor, essentially.
Exactly.
How it's arranged. Yeah.
Exactly. So I modified his basic rotor there, and that became its own intellectual property. So that's part of Varian.
Fantastic.
Fascinating, Captain.
Absolutely. This is amazing. So, and certainly I've seen it, and it is quite a marvel, and the graphs and everything. So,
But in addition to that,
uh-huh.
a lot of what we do here at Varian it's a technology incubator. So we're taking other technologies and bringing them to, purpose-built function. What's their purpose, and making them achieve that purpose. And
Right.
that's where the fun is, and that's why, when Malcolm showed up, we saw these parallels in what we have here and what he has there.
Right.
And his chocolate with our peanut butter. Bonzer.
Good sandwich.
Bonzer. Right?
Yeah.
Awesome. We'll definitely get more into how you met Malcolm and all of that. But I wanted to touch on the Law Century Conference that you attended back in 2023 with Stephen Greer. And can you tell us that story and how that...
Yeah. Stephen had heard about the Walt Jenkins technology. He'd been searching it out for some time. He was looking to hopefully go open source with it, because that's his MO, and I think that's a brilliant thing that he's persuading or trying to persuade people. It's a little challenging when you've already got shareholders and stuff to tell them, look,
just put it on out there.
Put this open source, like, oh shit. But Stephen showed up here 22 just before Christmas,
Uh-huh.
2022 before Christmas. And, we all sat in here and had hours and hours of conversation. And then we showed him the Walt Jenkins technology out there.
Ah.
And that's what you see on the Lost Century film there, is a couple of snippets there from his visit with us. Walt passed on this technology to me on his deathbed because I'd always been a loyal collaborator and helped him and never asked him for anything. Just interest, always interest in the field. And, I got to tell you that Walt went through a lot for his gains that he made technologically. He got visited by some large manufacturers whose names you would recognize on a daily basis. He got visited by them and they tried to persuade him to sell out, and he didn't, and he ended up in the hospital as a result of that, Got clubbed over the head and spent weeks in the hospital and recovered and pressed on. But he had made a discovery. He had been in the field of electrolysis, as we all have, trying to make a more efficient electrolyzer. I've got a patented electrolyzer that's super efficient. But it's electrolysis, so it's limited by Faraday's constants there, You have only so much, even though I've had, with my cell, I've seen it exceed Faraday, but that was an anomaly, and I didn't track it at the time because good enough was good enough, But that exists there for anybody that wants to play that game. But Walt, after playing with a variety of electrolysis devices, there's a little video that he did, an interview that he did where he was talking about his inspiration for that. And it was basically watching thunderstorms while he's sitting out there at his home in Anna Maria Island out by Sarasota, Bradenton. And he observed something in the atmosphere. And with that, he reproduced it in a little jar, a little cube, one of these little electrical cubes. He was very fond of stopping at the PVC sections of Home Depot. I don't think you could drive past the Home Depot without stopping in and grabbing some PVC parts. But you gotta love him. He was a very creative force and very dedicated to his art. So when it came time, when years after getting clubbed over the head and going through this, that, and the other, and working out various schemes for getting further high-level investments, getting billions and billions, which he saw the value of. That was the thing. He didn't want to scale it up. He wanted it all to happen at once. And that's where he goofed, administratively, with the rollout of this technology. But when it came down to transferring what knowledge he had to me, as he wanted to do on his deathbed, he had been so restrained for so long that it became the MO, that became his modus operandi, and he couldn't overcome his own barriers. So he only was able to translate so much of his technology. You have what you have inside the patent, but that data in the patent is like any patent. It's partial.
Got it. Yeah.
But I believe I've got the full picture nevertheless.
Good.
And interestingly enough, when Malcolm showed up and I showed him the parallels, his eyes got bigger than, his eyes are usually pretty big. But they're like jacked up another 20%. He's like, wow, look at this. That's great.
And you have his car here. Walt's car.
Yeah, Walt's dune buggy there.
Yeah.
Which he had running, for the most part, majorly on water, percentage-wise.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Did you have something to add, Jordan?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, we got the calls after Malcolm got here in July, and his eyes were that big if I could see them. He was really excited about talking to Ed and seeing this technology and the synergy and everything between that. Yeah.
Well, the key indicator is he came for a couple of days and he stayed for a couple of months. So yeah, there is a lot of synchronicity in what's happening here. And one of the things that I tend to say is things don't just happen; they happen just. So as long as you roll with it, you'll get somewhere. So
That's kind of the theme of the story these last few months.
True.
Just kind of just rolling it. It's just all happening.
Yeah.
So exciting. So yeah, so Virian's basically, your facility where you can go ahead and put all those ideas into the physical universe here.
Exactly.
It's pretty wild.
A lot of prototyping going on here. A lot of different aspects of technology. But one of the things that dealing with all these different things has provided me with is an overview, an exterior and external kind of a perspective of how they all, though different, are fundamentally the same.
Yeah.
Your favorite word there.
Fundamental.
It's fundamental.
You mean operating on the same principles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The underlying principles. Once you get it, once you get that key data, that key concept there, you see it in all its parallel forms and all its different formats.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
it's the key. It's the key.
So you've come down to a more basic knowledge and truth, and then are able to validate it in various applications.
Yeah, and it becomes a real foundation, And my old buddy Leonardo da Vinci, I don't know if you ever heard this guy,
Sounds familiar.
but he was a pretty smart fellow, pretty smart guy.
You knew him.
Well, we don't brag about that. No, the thing he, paraphrase what he used to say is the ultimate sophistication is a simplicity. So that basically means that once you've got it completely taken apart and figured out, you can make it simple. So you can see this in a lot of the machines that he had designed. Because all of the features work well together, and that's what you should have with any kind of machine that you create. And that's the overarching goal that I have when I put things together, when I make things, is make it as simple as possible, and thereby you end up with something that's robust and has great longevity, but more significantly, it doesn't operate outside of its parameters because you've got it locked in with the simplicity, with the power of simplicity. Because if you're duplicating what nature wants to do, it's going to fly.
Yeah, and as soon as you get into like, oh well, I need to correct this over here by adding this gizmo to correct that to the
compromise solutions. Yeah,
it's just you're moving away from.
Yep, you're complicating.
Fundamental. Yeah.
Creating another problem every time you create a solution.
If you don't get to the bottom of the underlying cause, you end up with these patches that blow up.
Yeah.
Bill Gates and Microsoft comes to mind, the development of all of that, but
they're using those patches for, yes.
I just that, yeah. Anyways, that is awesome. And I also wanted to find out how, so you met Kieron at this Lost Century.
Stephen Greer.
Yes, and can you tell us a little bit about that and what that's led to?
Yeah, that was a very synchronistic happenstance there. It was brilliant. Brilliant, as the Guinness guys like to say. Brilliant. It's lovely. We met at the bar there at the hotel, and we just started chatting right away, and I realized, hey, this guy's pretty sharp. He seems to be on top of things. But I told him about what I was about and what I was doing there, and his interest was obvious. So we just started to connect, spent some time there at the event. Stephen is a force of nature himself. He's brilliant in what he does, and his whole disclosure program is amazing.
Wow.
In simple terms, it's amazing. But what occurred there was really just with Kieron and I, we were both intending the same thing, and it kind of like phase locked us. I don't know, I think my cerebral cortex shuddered a little bit there, and then it fell into line.
Clicked in, huh?
and we got lined up, and we started to put things into perspective, and got into routine conversation. So when he called me up and said, "Hey, I'm over here in the Carolinas at this conference," and said, I'm like, "Dude, I have been looking at what is coming out from Malcolm and just was really interested in that. So it was, another parallel course there. So so he talked to Malcolm and said, "Hey, why don't you come visit Ed?" Comes to
Oh,
visit Ed.
so
Malcolm
this,
says, "Holy shit, what are we going to do about this?" And things just have been going chuck, 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 chuck. All the dominoes fall, and all the pieces kind of fall into place.
wow.
It's inspired. So you rock,
Spot on.
you rock.
Kieron's been an absolute force in networking a lot of these inventors and helping to push this technology out there within all the spheres. He's really put everyone together and helping us drive forward, all of us,
Yeah.
on these technologies, because it is the same principles as Ed noted.
Right. And
He's an unnatural force of nature.
Yeah.
Cheers.
I think, yeah, and it makes sense to me because you have, the entrepreneur, the inventor, and then Kieron, you plug into the Irish expertise and your connections in Ireland with not only actually manufacturing, but tweaking something new into scale up and manufacturing, which I've come to understand is quite the process. And so with your connections, it's like perfect. You don't have to worry about sort of that end of it because Kieron, with his can take it and scale it up. So anything you want to add to that, Kieron, as far as the Irish component?
Well, I'm a passionate Irishman, and I just, from all my, engineering and international, I suppose, sales activities and dealing with geniuses like Malcolm and Ed and so on, I was very passionate. I met Willie back in Austria, thanks to Johnny, my good friend, many, many years ago. That was my introduction to free energy. And ever since then, ever since then, I was kind of gunning for that, because I wanted to benefit mankind. That was always my thing. And I was never fully content doing what I was doing. And I wanted to use engineering and all my experience in there just to help mankind. And I was always trying to find the vehicle or the vehicles to do that.
Wow.
And I understood all the different organisations, from dealing with multinationals and small to medium-sized enterprises, all the barriers with money, funding, R&D, purchasing, ISO 9000, quality systems. And I could understand the whole thing internationally. I saw the same problems globally. And but I stuck on course and I invested a lot of time to find this man. That was the idea, thanks to my wife going to Dr. Stephen Greer. That was where Ed and I met, and I met another guardian angel of the planet there as well, which Ed nudged me. He said, "There's that Patricia Duggan there in front of you," and we were at a press release. And a huge admirer of Trish and her works for education and innovation around the world, and as a humanitarian. So it was just perfect. That conference was that was a scale up in itself, because I just know when you meet the right people with the right intention and the right purpose, we can make shit happen. And that's what occurred there. And it led on to several meetings with Ed and back and forth. And then when I met Malcolm and I we just connected spiritually, eyeball to eyeball, and I invited him down. Ed happened to say to me afterwards, he says, "I was thinking about Malcolm Bendall, and I'm like, in future tell me." Because I just invited Malcolm down. It was going to be a day or two. That was it. And, 3 months later, he had to jump out of the States. And then those guys, it was just great to see the co-creation between them.
Yeah.
And Malcolm's fire hose of knowledge was just, startling. And it was just, I thought it was great validation for both, just to, operate at that level. And, it must be such a relief for these guys to kind of, that's what I, so happy about, to see the co-create going on, because it's awful lonely when you're operating in a different, it must be, I can't relate to it, so, so that's really, that's it. And here we are, I met Jordan on the journey there, I spent some time with him in Austria, and Bruno in the Czech Republic, and extraordinary, spiritual background with incredible ability to distill the knowledge of these guys and actually start educating people like me and children and so on.
Right.
Fascinating. And then Sheela joined us there in Clearwater, and just unbelievable. And I just found that Malcolm's ability and Ed's ability to pull in the right people,
Yeah.
including yourself, Susan, at the right time for the next motion. It's just incredible. So it's it's fascinating. So it's an honor to be here. It's a privilege to be here, and I really mean that sincerely. So
Yes, I feel exactly the same. And thank you for inviting me in, both of you.
I wanted to mention something there.
Yeah.
Regarding what Jordan and Sheela bring.
Yeah.
It's really a considerable amount of depth and penetration into the factors. It's hard to find words actually to describe it. The panorama of technical elements.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you do with your art is just, for me, I see it as possibly something that I should utilize to home in on key frequencies, because as we all know, frequencies are fundamental.
The fundamentals.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you work a lot with oscilloscopes as well, right?
Yeah.
And what do you see? How does that help your technology? It helps you visualize what's happening with the electrical current, or talk about your use of oscilloscopes.
Yeah, because, you can't just, the average person can't leave their hand on a motor and say, well, I feel like this is going like this here, It's not a routine or common ability. So having that scope there gives you a clear representation of, all things in relative dimensions. So you can see where you're going. It's a guide.
Mm-hmm.
It's a guide. And what you're doing is the same thing. It's a guide. So I really appreciate the fact that you're not only here, but the fact that you exist.
Yes.
as a capable entity. It's no small thing. So pardon me for getting a little emotional about it.
Aww.
It's really cool.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh,
I love it.
It's fucking necessary.
yeah.
Right.
Thank
It's the bridge. It really is this little tiny glue that helps people understand these fundamental principles of harmonic resonance that are the basis of your technology and Malcolm's technology. So once people can see that, things can fit together and create coherence. This should be
Stable coherence.
Yeah, stable coherence. There's less leaks.
Useful.
There's less leaks, and systems are operating in a more efficient way, which is the goal for all of our systems, right? Even our bodies.
Has something to do with harmony.
Something. Wow.
Exactly.
That's excellent.
That's what current technology is missing, because when we look at it, it's this isn't exactly even over unity.
Yeah.
It's just getting to the point where we're actually utilizing all of the energy available rather than wasting half of it into heat or EMF or other forms of wastage.
That's a key thing that you find in all of these last 100 years of technology that is used on a day-to-day basis here is the wasting. Energy is created and it's wasted instead of recycled. And that's part of the stuff that we're working on here as well, is how to continue to use energy instead of going pass through, bye-bye, pass through, bye-bye.
That's what Malcolm calls the Thunderstorm generator, right? It's a waste energy recovery system, because currently we're calling that exhaust waste pollution or a problem, or same as EMF, but it doesn't have to be. That's utilizable energy. Something else we have,
It's brilliant in its simplicity.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to see if Sheela wanted to expound a little more on her, as everyone probably already knows, Sheela is able to visually demonstrate, which we just touched on. And I think Malcolm feels the same way that Ed does. It's like this, oh my gosh, this is what I've been talking about. Now I can show people.
It's exciting.
Yeah. And so on that vein, in order to educate people, we have Kieron, you mentioned Trish Duggan, and she is the owner of Imagine Museum, which is a beautiful place in St. Petersburg. And Trish herself is a brilliant mathematician, scientist, very tapped in. on the artistic vein as well as the science vein. So can you talk a little bit about, because you're going to be working with her and have provided her some of your frequencies and demonstrations. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So like we were saying, the whole universe is based off of these principles of harmonic resonance.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of this knowledge has just been totally ripped from us. All of the units of measurements have been skewed from this perfect clicking, perfect harmonic nesting of as above, so below, which it basically means there's different octaves, dimensional octaves of reality that have to be, they have to correspond. Their octaves have to be in harmony, which means they have to have these relationships based off of ratios, the doubling and the tripling, and fifth harmonics. And you see these principles and these ratios in every single level of reality, from the quantum scale to cosmic scale. So, for example, in electrons, you see these ratios around the shells of the 2 to 3 coming up a lot. And there's several other ratios that we see on the quantum scale. And then in the cosmic scale, you see these ratios in planetary motions, planetary movements. And they create these different elliptical types of patterns that we see exactly on the quantum. So it is the epitome of as above, so below. So once we start making all of our systems in harmonic resonance with these properties, everything just starts clicking into place. And yeah, with technology, it's like having a system that's in resonance with itself, making sure all of the parts are resonating with each other. And that's one thing, you know, I love about Malcolm's Thunderstorm generators. He's taking into account that every single piece of the puzzle vibrates at a specific frequency, and that you can create a system and see, you know, this pipe vibrates at 64 hertz and this pipe vibrates at 128 hertz, which is a double of 64. And then you can create all these nested harmonics within a system, and that makes a system more efficient,
more flexible as well, and you have all of these options because of the mathematics of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So between you and Jordan, you're going to be educating folks on these incredible, they're actually not new, right? But this ancient, but this new sort of reawakening, it's not even so much of reawakening, it's just understanding the importance of what you're talking about. You know, it's sort of putting it into the proper level of importance.
And to answer your question about the Imagine Museum exhibition, so the forms that I've contributed are these geometrical, very stable waveforms. So what I did for that was I took Malcolm's frequencies from his plasmoid unification model, and I converted those numbers into frequencies, and then I ran those through the oscilloscope, and then I was able to demonstrate how these systems are operating in coherent resonance. So these are coherent standing waves that are not leaking energy. They're stable and they're in harmony with themselves. And so making this concept into an art piece is a great way to teach people how these principles work, to make it beautiful and, you know, unique. And so the basis of that piece that series was taking several different lines from the plasmoid unification model, and then showing each one the unique geometries that form within that system and how they morph into each other and other systems when you change the numbers, but it always remains in coherent resonance with itself, even if you have all 32 lines. Those are all 32 values in one line activated simultaneously. It's all going to be coherent, and that's the principle of what we're all trying to convey here.
And the artistic aspect of it piques interest in the broad strata of the culture, which is going to enhance the overall thrust of the technology going into use and discoveries as well. Because again, this you get the basics of it. It works.
Right. Yeah.
As long as if something works, use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so not only are you here to validate their inventions, both Malcolm's and Ed's, it's also a vehicle to educate the public, and it's for them to see the validation,
Right.
and for them to understand, oh my gosh, this really is
Exactly.
nature.
Right. And for all future engineers and architects to start employing these principles of harmonic resonance into their construction. So, yeah.
Which they do on a very basic level, but this is just, bringing it
Yeah.
into a font. It's kind of like they're looking at one frequency, you've got a bridge or something, and they're making sure that that's not going to come in line to, the people marching across the bridge, and
Yeah.
the bridge started wobbling. And
Yeah.
so they're using these principles, but it's very compartmentalized how they're taught. And this really
Limited.
unifies
It's very limited. Yeah.
all of those ideas, and
Wow.
being able to view things in 3D, an improvement of the oscilloscope.
Yeah. Well, it's my turn to cheer up. It's just incredible what you're doing. Oh my God, goosebumps. And just, the more you understand the cohesiveness of, my goodness, nature, how we've come together as a group, and the cohesiveness and the harmony of the group is sort of also echoed in what you're describing and what you're going to be displaying. So it's fantastic. So
Incredible synchronicities.
it is incredible. It's like, wow. But well, I didn't really have anything more. Does anybody want to add anything before we close and kind of wrap it up with a final message?
Well, I'd like to just acknowledge Malcolm, because one of the things I saw in Malcolm is not just his ability as an inventor, reinventor, and educator, is his ability to actually maneuver to get to this position as an executive, as a businessman. And he's doing it for God. He's doing it for mankind. And
For sure.
that really inspired me, because going back to Dr. Stephen Greer, when I heard about his open source model and the way that was the way to succeed, get the technologies out to mankind all at once, and the public will demand it, and forget about financial rewards and the inventor becoming the next Elon Musk and so on, because nobody succeeded. I could see he was working 360 degrees across the executive, production, quality control, learning, innovation, and also the love and then pulling in these special beings like, and there's Randall Carlson, and there's Bob Greenyer, and there's many other people involved globally on this project. And his ability to write up his notes and take time on an island to think, to write up his notes. And it's to get to this pivotal point we're in, which is surreal for him. And we're here representing him. And this is the breakthrough. It's done. And the logistics will catch up, and it'll form a funnel of various applications of Malcolm's technologies and Ed's technologies and all the other greats, and acknowledge all the greats in the past, the Walter Jenkins and all the inventors of the past that were trying to get to this point. Do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, no, it's just opening the floodgates. I think that's why we've all got behind Malcolm, and this synergy has formed, is that there's so many inventors, so many great scientists in the past, since Tesla's days, and obviously way before that. We can find it all over ancient history, that have tried to get this out there, that have tried to speak about the principles, even more than just one invention or another. And Malcolm's really been able to push that forward, get it out on scale with everyone's help. And if we can do that, then it means it's the new industrial revolution. There can be thousands of different new inventions that can come on the market, and all inventors will be able to follow that and have the freedom to put these out there, because this has been an orchestrated suppression of these technologies. I know, Ed, you mentioned that this is kind of one of the first times you've really publicly talked about this stuff, right? Yeah, true. Because it hasn't been a great atmosphere.
No, but as you all observed as well, the atmosphere has shifted.
Yeah.
And now those forces that have been classically resistant to change, it's clear, from the demand perspective globally, that change has to come. as far as, contamination, pollution, and so forth.
Mhm.
And this device is a great transitional technology. Malcolm's Thunderstorm generator is a great transitional technology.
Yeah.
Take existing infrastructure and give it some continued purpose, some expanded life expectancy that a lot of countries, businesses, island nations, they really need.
Yeah.
Just on that, I mean, the other thing as well is with all the trepidation that's been on the planet, geopolitically, financially, climate change scare or whatever, all this stuff going on, I think it's about time we all, as a society, one little community on this little planet had a win. And I see this as a vehicle, not just for transitional technology and pollution cleanup and more fuel efficiency and decompressing all the pressure that's on people in third world countries and first world countries financially, as families and as business owners trying to run factories. I see it as a channel for education. I mean, this man spoke to me about give him a few months on his own and he can actually, almost like false data strip the maths and geometries and the whole holistic education with Sheela and Randall and so on, create a whole new school that will rebuild the base from baseline.
Yeah, we need to move on because everything is so compartmentalized right now. You go and you learn engineering and it's different to what the physicists are learning and that's different to what the chemists are learning.
Yeah.
This is all one science. It's frequency and geometry. And I mean, that's primarily what Malcolm and Marco and Randall and Sheela, everyone, has come together to teach me these principles. But we need to be able to distill this down.
Yeah.
As you're saying, that's been, a lot of Sheela and my own role is to try and be translators for people like Malcolm and Ed and put this into really simple words that people can understand. But we've got to start from the ground up again because our current education system is not equipped.
Well, it's designed to bulk the student.
Yeah, it is.
Designed to multiply the student.
And that's, of course, not the fault of the scientists. Like, people have made great discoveries over the year, but they've been funded for bullshit, or to just come up with, this is this such and such theory.
Right.
But there's one theory. There's a unification, right?
Right.
Frequency, geometry, we get back to these principles and we can understand any of this. Two opposing vortexes, the Thunderstorm, Walt Jenkins and Malcolm and Ed, all working on these same principles, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And despite the suppression, it's been discovered. So it's interesting.
It's out there now.
Yeah.
It's too late on that, I think, and there's a real need to see inventions like this come on the market. Like, we are getting to that point where basic energy demands are not being fulfilled. Pollution's becoming a major issue. We're wasting trillions of dollars that we don't have, when people are suffering in the world on pointless infrastructure that's just creating more problems like we were talking about before.
Complex solutions.
Right.
Yeah, complex solutions, Band-Aid fixes. And these types of technologies just bring it back to base principles. Water, thunderstorms, hydrogen.
Crack the lightning, bang, there it goes.
Yeah, and there's your trillions of megawatts of energy in some lightning or a thunderstorm.
Harness nature.
Harness nature, yeah.
Wow. Well, this has been amazing. Ed, so great to interview you and get the whole full backstory. Is there
the
anything?
first.
Yes.
The first?
Yes.
First of many.
The big revolution.
And I just say that's why this man has been so humble about what he's been doing, and it's like this to kind of stick with what he's been doing over the last 30, 40 years. And to come to this pinnacle point, it just brings me so much happiness and joy just to service him and service Malcolm as well. 50 years pushing. And when he came to Clearwater, he said he was falling over because it was like the atmosphere changed. He was no longer pushing. And that's because of the alignment of all parties involved with all different skill sets to get this out there. And that's the beauty about this. So it is nature in harmony going to make this new reality. And it's holistic and it's a renaissance. It's an energy renaissance as far as I'm concerned. So really it's a privilege to know Ed, and thanks to Trish Duggan as well. Thanks to Malcolm and Sheela. It's an absolute honour, getting to know you over the last several months and seeing you at Cosmic Summer as well. Met you there for the first time, and this man is just off the charts as well with his purity, and he will keep marching on and create bigger and better things when we get this last push done. And then we'll have a big official release with Joe Rogan in January.
Yeah,
Exciting.
around then. I believe the date's still to be set, but early next year. It
Yeah.
sounds like we might hear about it on the world stage again.
Yes.
And I just have to reiterate the humility and the heart of everybody that's involved in this. It is about humanity. It's not about, yes, there's business applications. Yes, there's manufacturing and bean counting necessary, but everyone involved is working as hard as they can with as little as you might imagine to get this out. And I think that that's what is making, and that to me is a natural force in and of itself. So it's sort of almost like surfing on a huge wave, it's kind of like the intentions are so pure that it's just rolling. And that is just everybody I've met in this whole endeavor is absolutely one of the most purest beings I've ever met as far as heart and humanity. So that it just can't be stated enough as far as I'm concerned. Living in the corporate world, being in the corporate world for so long, the intention is not always to help, and that's what you guys do. So, okay, well, I think that wraps it up. Thank you, everyone. I think this has been a first for Ed, and I'm sure there'll be many more.
Thanks, Sid.
We're on it, Ed. Thank you.
Cheers, Joel.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
mate.
This is no resistance. No resistance, just harmony.
That's it. Just like your 9-phase generator.
Oh, yeah.
It all surface back.
Cheers. Thanks.
Cheers.